What have you got for us, Bob?
Well, Sam Weber was um, Hallowell's historian for 27 years. He wasn't born in Hallowell. He was actually born in New Hampshire, but he moved here when he was very young, like 3, um, which is to say that he's not really a native. One of the local uh, 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 humorists here says that just because the cat has kittens in the oven, you don't call them biscuits. So, Sam wasn't really a native. You can't, but he was a dyed in the wool Hallowellian. He went to school here, eventually came back and was the social studies teacher at Halldale for 27 years. So he's well known in the community. And he died in December. And we decided to do a local history symposium in his honor. And it's really a two-parter. It begins Saturday morning, May 2nd at 10 o'clock in the Hallowell Cemetery. And we're doing a tour of the cemetery, especially the older sections of the cemetery, based on numerous tours that Sam did that were really popular. And we're going to end up that tour looking at the grave of a person by the name of James Matthews. And James Matthews was an enslaved person who lived in South Carolina. He escaped slavery in 1836, made it to Boston, barely alive, and then somehow ended up in Hallowell. And he lived in Hallowell then for the next 50 years. He lived at the Hallowell Poor Farm. In 1850, he's listed in the census as being a patient in the insane asylum, Hallowell Mental Health Institute across the river. Actually, behind me here, I'm in the cemetery, and the mental health institution is just back across the river there. Um, he died impoverished, and the local International Order of Odd Fellows has as one of their charges burying indigent people. And so they paid for his burial and his a headstone for him. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that. And the reason that we're talking about that is the second part of the program is a symposium that will feature a conversation with Dr. Susanna Ashton. And she's on the faculty of Clemson University. Her work really has been to focus on the writings of enslaved people in the South. Her most recent work is called A Plausible Man, and that's a story of the person who escaped slavery again from South Carolina. He escaped and spent the night in the home of Harriet Beecher Stowe. And Harriet Beecher Stowe took inspiration from his story, just one evening spent with her family and her children, to write Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was the largest selling book in the 19th century. Remarkable piece that really uh, did a great deal to fuel the anti slavery movement. But James Matthews, he was actually interviewed uh, for a series of articles that appeared in an abolitionist newspaper that was first published in Hallowell called The Advocate. And he, in this series of stories that he kind of narrated, was called A Flight from Slavery, is the name of Susanna Ashton's talk. And he talked about his experience. And that is a very dramatic and horrific account of his life and his escape. What's interesting is that appeared 15 years, almost 15 years before Uncle Tom's Cabin. And in doing research for A Plausible Man, Susanna Ashton had was at the Maine Historical Society. She got the copies of The Advocate, and she's reading The Advocate, and she reads this um, the series of articles about that were written by a person named Jim. And through her research, she determined that she believes that Jim was, in fact, James Matthews. And she contacted Sam Weber to find out, was James Matthews buried in Hallowell, and some details about his life. And so that's going to be part two. That'll be at 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon at Hallowell City Hall. She'll be talking about a flight from slavery and an afterlife of freedom, which is the story of James Matthews. And these both are kind of in honor of Sam's work as a local historian.
Yes, and Sam was a very important. Like you would probably think that Sam deserves the intro I gave you, and my point is that you also I think are a very important part of our community who is I will say our community on sufferance, uh, but in Hollowell, and I think though it is very fitting that we are looking at the local history, honoring Sam, and at the same time, I want to, I think we should all thank you for the work you've been putting in on all this stuff as well, and not to mention everybody involved in historic Hollowell, um, and so that's this is going to be a very interesting tour. This story is compelling, and I've we have seen Susanna Ashton's presentation to the Kennebec Valley Historical Society on Facebook. You can get a sense of what it's going to be. It is not for the faint of heart what happened to James Matthews and his backstory. But I've heard her speak. She should be just fascinating.